I'd like to call the meeting
Not a
of the
problem.
Board of Public Works for December 28th, 2016 to order. First on the agenda is there is no minutes. They'll be put up till the next meeting. I'm sorry. First we have to ask if anybody's recording this other than LCAT.
Yes, Bob Parent, for the purpose of creating minutes.
Okay, and we're going to defer the approval of minutes till the next meeting. Next is the Superintendents Report.
Thank you. Relatively short agenda today. I just want to give the board an update on a couple of items. One, I did want to let the board know that myself, Mr. Burak, and Bruce Fenny met with town manager Ryan Quimby, Sarah Menard, and Tom O'Connor to go through the requested capital projects for this year. I think overall it was a positive meeting. I think they were receptive to what we had to say. The sense I got was that the process is still somewhat evolving, that they don't necessarily that they're, I think, primarily waiting for some council input, particularly in terms of what the financial goals they're going to be getting from the council, so that will help to set some of the constraints for the capital planning for this year. What we did hear back was they did ask us to prioritize projects, which we'll be doing and getting back to them. It wasn't originally part of the original request, but they did make that request. And they did ask us to separate out not only the water and sewer projects, but the water and sewer funded vehicles. And they did appear receptive to the concept that, particularly with this year, with the revenue that were brought in through our high water consumption, that there may be an opportunity to fund vehicles allocated to the water and sewer divisions that we might not normally get in a typical year. So they seemed, again, open to that concept, and they wanted us to take those vehicles and make it explicit that those were not part of the general fund request.
Awesome. And that might help us get rid of some of those backhoes.
We hope so, yes. I wasn't at this meeting, but I know that Mr. Fenny sat in on the school capital meeting as well. And what the capital group that I just mentioned ultimately asked the school department to do is to come and, again, prioritize the projects that they had and then really separate them into two lists. A list that they would hope to fund through an annual capital set-aside, and a list that would be more likely to be funded through bonding, through the bonding process, the larger value items that would be funded over multiple years as opposed to over a single year. Again, I think the direction for that really depends somewhat on the council. I believe the town council has put together a debt committee to try to set some goals for the town in terms of what level of debt they feel comfortable for the town to be incurring. I know Mr. Madison is leading that committee, so I believe he certainly understands, the whole issues of bonding and what the town bonding status is probably as good as anybody does at this point. And then I did want to note that there's been no word yet on the operating budget process. Given that the town meeting is no longer the driving factor from a schedule standpoint, we have a little bit more time, I believe, in the planning process to get the operating budgets in. But at this point, none of the town departments have yet received any input in terms of the operating budget process yet for this year. I think the last time we got together, I mentioned I sat in on a meeting discussing the potential medical office facility to be located at the corner of Maple Street and Dwight and Williams, right on the East Longmeadow line. Myself and representatives of Longmeadow are looking at primarily traffic impacts at this point in the traffic study that's been done, both to get an understanding of what the potential impacts are, and then also a little bit longer term of what some of the potential improvements might be coming out of the project that could ultimately not only mitigate the impact of the project, but to solve some of the long-term problems that exist at that whole corridor, going all the way from Chestnut and Benton up through Maple and Williams and Dwight up to Converse, with three of those intersections being in Longmeadow and one of them being in East Longmeadow, but the impact really being on both sides of the town line. So what I did is I brought a couple of sketches that the engineer working for the developers put together at this point. I want to say that they're very preliminary, very conceptual at this point. I think one of the main reasons they've been developed is really to take a look at what the capital cost of these improvements might be from a budgetary standpoint, so that then the project can be looked at from a tax revenue standpoint to see whether or not the revenue that might be generated off of the project would help to fund some of these long-term improvements over some period of time. So all the details of the proposed improvements aren't nailed down yet, but I think kind of the big picture concepts are what you see here. And what you can see, one figure shows starts at the Chestnut and Benton intersection on the right-hand side of the figure, and then you see the Maple Street, Williams, Dwight Road, Benton intersection. And then the other figure is a little bit further to the north, and it shows the Converse Street intersection in Long Meadow. It's my understanding right now the concept is to fully upgrade all of the signals in that corridor, including a new signal that would be installed at the intersection of Converse and the project driveway, and the existing signals at Williams and Maple and at Benton and Chestnut, and coordinate those signals so that they all work together. In terms of the improvements that are being suggested at this point, you can see that there's some lane widening that's being proposed on Maple Street. There's some widening that's being proposed in Williams, some widening being proposed in Dwight, as well as Converse and the project driveway. So it certainly looks like this will go a long way towards addressing some of the long-term problems. Again, it's still kind of conceptual at this point, but we're starting to get our head around these concepts to see if both Long Meadow and East Long Meadow would agree that this would be the way to go.
I think it makes sense.
It's looks like it could solve a lot of problems. And it's something that we've been waiting a long time.
I can't see anything I would change differently.
No.
One thing I'm looking at right now is going a little bit further to the east. They did, as part of the traffic study, they did traffic counts at the Westwood Fairhaven intersection. And it's a tricky intersection right now, depending on what time of day you're trying to get off Westwood and depending which direction you're trying to go in Maple. And this project will certainly add traffic to Maple, and traffic turning into Westwood and turning out of Westwood. Whether it's something we look at now or something we look at in the future, perhaps at least doing something to improve some of the lines of sight and some of the other things at Westwood, or maybe even trying to do some minor realignment with those two intersections to make visibility better than it currently is, which is one of the big problems right now. You pull out on the right-hand side as you're coming out of Westwood, you have a very difficult time seeing with the shape of the terrain there. The property on the east side of Westwood and Maple, I believe, is currently bank-owned, so there may be some opportunities there, as well as if, you're just kind of looking, if we're looking big picture, whether we look at it now or look at it somewhere down the road, Westwood might be part of some improvements in that corridor.
Could that be made part of this project?
Potentially. I at least to put it onto the table and want to have a discussion with the developer and see what ideas their engineer might have to make it better. I don't think it's signalization, because if you look at the traffic flow, signals can slow down the flow of traffic. Right now, Maple flow is pretty good. It's the Westwood people that have a hard time getting out onto Maple.
So that north corner, I think a lot of that is that visibility.
Yeah.
If you pull up and you look to the east, that bank, and I don't know if there's
And that's the property that's owned by a bank, right?
It's the opposite side, but maybe there's some ability to the east side of not the property with the high bank, but the property opposite that.
The west side?
So if you're on Westwood, it's to the left?
To the left, correct.
Towards the center?
Yeah, that's the east side.
That's the east side.
Yeah.
So the east and north of Maple,
Yes.
that corner is bank owned?
That's correct.
I mean, I would be in favor of cutting it down it's bank owned right now. Even if we didn't do anything fancy with it, but go in there and scrape off 2 feet or 3 feet and get that visibility. Right.
Is there a tree?
Because you get a homeowner there and they say, don't touch, I don't want you to mess with my yard or whatever, but
I think the opposite side, as on the right-hand side, is tough. That's actually the higher bank on the right-hand side.
Where the flowers used to be? Gladioli?
Yeah.
So, but it is the left one, you can't see the people coming down the hill.
They're coming
You go
in
to take a
an
right,
angle.
you can't see until the last minute.
Yeah, the angle they're coming in, that comes in.
Some minor realignment might be able to help that, get that a little bit closer to the opposite Fairhaven as well, perhaps. But again, kind of a concept right now, whether it happens now or at least looking down the road.
Well, if we're gonna run up Maple Street with a new water main and this thing's going on, and we've got that road all chopped up, yeah, a little minor switching it here or there. But the guy on the other side, on the corner of Fairhaven, who's got the wooden guardrail to keep the people out of his house, I don't know how much you can slide.
Yeah, Fairhaven really isn't the issue because the traffic count is so low on that.
Yeah, right.
It's really Westwood that, looking at some of the numbers from the traffic studies, the backups are significant already, and what the projections for future traffic growth, they looked at two things. They looked at just 1% growth from a background condition standpoint without the development and the development impact on top of that. And there are some fairly significant increases in what they call queue length on Westwood that would result from not adding a lot of cars. 40 or 50 cars during the peak hour would really push that traffic back.
I would suggest a fair amount of that backup is you can't go left on Benton.
It may be, yeah.
If there's a line that's established coming from Long Meadow that they want to go straight, they just start taking off, and then if anybody wants to go left on Benton, it backs up past even to yield to the right. So nobody can go right, nobody can go straight, and the guy that wants to go left is waiting for 32 cars to come here, and then it goes yellow-red. And if the first guy doesn't let that guy go, if it's somebody that's timid, it'll sit a whole nother rotation until finally the first person decides to be a little courteous and let that left person go.
Yeah, you gotta be in a...
So I think signalization here is gonna make up for that 10% growth that we're seeing, because that's an ugly intersection. I go there a lot to go to work the back way. And sometimes you can just sit there and I go, why did I come this way?
So I think we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
I just wanted to put some of the
Yeah,
concepts
no, I
in
think
front
This
of you.
looks great.
I think they got everything.
Moving on to another roadway project, the Shaker Road, Chestnut Street intersection. As the board knows, we put in the right-hand turn lane from Shaker southbound, right-hand turn onto Shaker. Our next piece of that is we're adding a lane going up the hill in Chestnut. Our holdup there right now is the pole relocations with National Grid. They have done some of the design work at this moment, and what they've determined is that they need to do some additional, without a map it's a little hard to explain, but they need to do some additional guy wire, some additional restraints on some of the poles after they're relocated that will actually not require any new poles, but may require some additional guying. There are a couple of poles located behind La Fiorentina that would actually tie off to one of their relocated poles. And for that reason, I was meeting with the owner of La Fiorentina today to talk with him about, whether they'd be willing to allow National Grid to come in and do some visual guy wire work and things like that. So we're working that process through as well. Once we can get that taken care of, we can get the utility company relocations taken care of, then at that point we'd be ready with our staff to get in there and do the lane widening going up the hill. And at that point, that's when we put the signal changes into effect. Because the signal changes will incorporate the modifications we're making, adding the new left-hand turn coming down the hill, as well as, again, without a picture, it's hard to explain it, but right now on the southbound approach on Chestnut, we have a dedicated right-hand turn and a combined straight-through left-hand turn. We painted the right-hand turn arrows so that once we get the signal changes made, we could actually make that a combined right-hand turn straight through by adding the straight-through arrow on top of essentially the right-hand turn arrow. So that's kind of the next phase of this, that again is all hinging on getting the utility poles moved, getting the road widened, and then making some of these other changes.
Now we go right on to go up Chestnut. Are we adding a whole new lane there?
No, it's the down one. It's the down to take a right.
Down to take
To take a left.
Take a left. Okay. So you're just gonna move that, you're gonna cut it so you come up on the right and making it wide enough so coming down the hill you can.
Or you can go right or left,
Yeah.
or straight.
Okay.
And the right would go right or straight.
In order to get that, you have to make the right hand.
Make the opposite side of the road wider, and we shift the center line of
That's
the road.
the same thing that happens in the early morning going down, when you can't take left,
Yeah.
but there is a go left,
I don't know why we don't get an arrow there when the other.
there is a go left arrow going east
Right.
on
Yes.
Chestnut.
Yeah.
And at that time, you can actually sneak some lefts before to go up the hills.
You have a red.
It stays red. It's
Oh, that's right,
protected,
it
yeah.
stays.
Yeah,
Right.
I was I was looking at it, I said, why don't, we should get a
Go left
arrow
arrow.
too.
That's a matter of the weight thing again?
To add the dedicated turn lanes, you have to add actually new signal heads. And we could do it in the future if we had funding to replace the existing signal heads that are currently a metallic head of some type that are heavier, and shift them over to polycarbonate heads. At that point, we could actually add more devices,
Yeah.
but keep the total weight the same. At this point, if we add more devices, we increase the load on the existing poles, which we don't want to do at this moment.
Is there any reason we can't add the go straight arrow to the go right arrow on southbound now? So you can go straight in either lane? Is it a safety thing?
Let me think about it. We may be able to. Yeah.
If we're gonna do it anyways, it might help relieve, because people waiting for the person to go left don't want to go over there because it says right only. If it said straight in either lane, when there's nobody going right, people could at least go around that person going left.
Yeah. Have to think about. What I don't want to do is I don't want to have two cars trying to go straight at the same time.
I understand.
Have them come in together. So
Yeah.
to see if we can.
So maybe you can't, so don't do it, but I just didn't.
Let's see, other things to note. As we've done for the past several years on our own, we used to support the JCs. Last couple of years, we're really taking on the task ourselves. We will be picking up Christmas trees that are left at the end of major roads and intersections. My game plan right now is to give residents until the weekend after New Year's. So New Year's weekend will be coming up, give them a full weekend after that, and then get a notice out that will tell people that as of the 9th of January, which gives them New Year's weekend, the next weekend, and that Monday to then get their trees out. And if they don't get the trees out to the street at that point, then they can bring them to the transfer station at no charge. But at that point, we'd stop doing pickups and not encourage people to bring them out to the street any longer.
So is anybody thinking about doing a pickup? Elsbo or JC's?
Not at this point. We haven't. I reached out to the JCs a year or two ago. There was really, the organization is still somewhat in flux, and we by default took on that responsibility because the residents don't really know who's picking up the trees, and the trees show up. So one way or the other, we have to get them off the street.
Is there still an Elsbo?
No, well, I mean, there is, but it's not attended, there's no meetings, it's kind of...
What's the next reminder deadline? Friday?
Probably, right? Typically
I'm
Friday.
just wondering if we could write a little article asking if anybody wants to get notoriety for a community service by doing a Christmas tree pickup on the weekend of the 6th and 7th, please contact the DPW. And I don't know whether a landscaping group or anybody would want to do it.
The last couple of years, it's worked out, really depends on what's happening with storms. If all of a sudden we're hit with major storms during that interval.
Right. Last year was no big deal, but if we get a big weekend storm and everybody's got their trees in piles, it's like this.
It doesn't get buried in there until spring. They get
Trying to brainstorm, is there a group or somebody that we might be able to get to
I don't know of an
community service?
I don't know of an organized group.
Yeah.
If that was our plan, I'd probably be better off just reaching directly out to them and trying to get a discussion going sooner than later. So I can try the JCs again. I wasn't very optimistic I'd get.
Get them with, they don't really.
They're still doing a carnival, right?
Yeah.
So
But
I'll
they
make a
don't
call.
have before they used to use some lumber stuff, they don't have the equipment anymore. That's why they paired up with knows what, the equipment.
All right, well, I guess maybe we just have to make it known that there isn't anybody, and would anybody be interested? All right.
The last item I want to note was that, and I think for a good thing, this Springfield Water and Sewer Commission, as they've had some retirements, have brought in some new staff. One of their staff members, for instance, is the former city engineer in Northampton who's now come down, who's their water operations manager. They brought down a gentleman from Holyoke who had been the Holyoke Superintendent of Public Works, Bill Fuqua. So they've got some new faces in there. Bill's now in Springfield Water and Sewer.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that's come out of that is that they have been taking a little bit different approach in terms of some of the disinfection practices that they have ongoing, particularly this time of year. It's a good thing, but it means that we then have to make some adjustments on our side because they chlorinate and then we rechlorinate within our system. So I'll be getting together with their staff next week to kind of get a better understanding of what their overall big picture plans are so we can make adjustments. I did want to note that we've talked sometimes in the past about something referred to as disinfection byproducts, some of the compounds that get generated as a result of chlorination. We are approaching the limits for that. We may, in fact, be close enough to the limit that we have to do what's known as an operational evaluation just to be able to show the state that we have a plan in place to make certain that we don't hit that limit. And again, that would be a joint evaluation because Springfield has the treatment end of things, primarily the treatment end of things, and we have our piece of it as well. So I think we've got some good conversations going, and we'll understand a little bit better what they're doing, how we can readjust to what they're doing, and then make certain that we stay below the limits. And that is all I have.
As far as studying wells, that issue, or continue to, I only bring that up because Granville and Westfield now are in a little bit of
it is Westfield Reservoir, which is Westfield Supply.
Yeah, they're counting on their wells now, right?
Yes.
They're all polluted.
Yeah, it's...
They had to close the university for 5 days in order because of the amount of water they use.
Really? So I just keep bringing it up, just do we pump water anywhere, somewhere, anywhere?
Having looked at it a number of years ago, wearing a different hat at that point, it's generally the conditions in town for groundwater supply are more favorable on the west side of town. You're generally more into the red pan clay on the east side of town. You get into the sand material as you get to the west. The problem is, as you get to the west, you also run into some of the industrial areas where you get some issues with some historical issues with some of the industries. Right. Where the most water may be available may not be a place that we want to look for water.
Right.
Yeah. And that Shapiro property at the end of Benton. There's like 40 acres or something there, right? That could be a potential well spot though, right?
That
far west, as close to the Long Meadow as you can get.
My understanding is that one of the historical contaminated areas is flowing more or less towards the south, and one is flowing towards the north. So I'm not certain
what's good and
without a lot of investigation and study that it would be an area that I think we'd really want to look at.
And it may be good now, and 20 years from now it might be junk.
Right.
Okay.
Roy, you're up.
Well, we'll talk about some hydrants. They're all winterized. We found some ones that needed some repair. We repaired those, so we're all in good shape with that. All the markouts were all caught up. We're continuing to jet problem of sewer areas and camera them and make notes of any like issues that we'll have to keep on top of. We're keeping up with all the potholes. We have our own supply of berm that we got in our bed, so we can have hot mix all winter, fill any potholes that come up. We're still doing some manhole repairs. We're cleaning catch basins now. Since the school was out this week, we did the parking lots and all the schools where we couldn't get them before. We also removed some stumps over at Birchland Park. We cleaned that up. And because of the impending storm, we did pick up as many trees as we could today, just so they wouldn't be frozen in. But they're starting to come up now. We're all caught up on tree work orders now. So we're starting to trim all the plow roots where any trees are coming into the roads. They might hit our mirrors and so forth. All the backflow testing for the year is completed now. Now we're just getting geared up for like snow plowing, salt and sanding. We're keeping the trucks and the plows and everything all ready to go. For the future, once the ground freezes and we don't get any snow, we'll be clearing all the sewer easements. We're also going to be going through all the barricades and getting them all repaired for the summer use. And we're going to continue with the catch basin repairs and cleaning and the potholes and what have you. That's all I have.
Excellent.
Short meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, schedule the next meeting.
I will be away from the 4th to the 9th. So if you'd like me to be here, looked at either the 10th would work or the following week would work. Wednesday the 10th, Tuesday, Wednesday the following week. If we did the following week, that still gives us another meeting at the end of January if we wanted to schedule it that way.
10th works for me. I will be away the end of
17th work or no? Is that what you're talking about? Skip the 10th to go right to the 17th?
Your call. It's any one of those four, either the 10th on that week or Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday the following week, which includes the 16th, 17th, or 18th.
Good on 16, 17, or 18.
That's you were at 17?
16 is Martin Luther King birthday, so that's a holiday.
When I think it is a holiday.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's a Monday.
17th then or no?
17?
17 works for me.
Okay.
All right, so the next meeting will be Tuesday, January 17th, 5 o'clock at the service building. Motion to adjourn?
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.